As we wrap up the year for 2024, it's time to reflect on my collection. There have been some new additions, while others were flipped to make room for those new additions. If you've been following this channel, I'm sure you have an idea of what's in my watch box at the moment. Here's a chance to show you the watches that have made it this year. But before I do, I want to reflect on the infancy of my watch collecting journey. Here's a picture I took in 2019. I had mostly Seiko divers. You have the Samurai, a couple of turtles, a mini turtle, an Orient diver, a dress watch, and my most expensive piece, the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. Then in 2020, I started flipping some watches, and I ended up adding the Gold Turtle, my first micro brand from Cincinnati Watch Company, a Seiko Monster, and the Seiko Flightmaster, and the evolution continues. So let's start off in no particular order. My Seiko SLA 049, the Naomi Uemura limited edition. This is the first SLA model that I bought from Seiko. This watch has such a unique case shape with that 4 o'clock crown. It's such a Seiko signature to me, and I always get lost in that blue textured dial with a bit of sunburst effect. As a Seiko diver fanboy, I definitely wanted an SLA model in my collection. I initially thought it was crazy to spend thousands on a Seiko, but here I am with this SLA 049. Maybe I got desensitized to watch prices, but this one was worth it to me. This is one of my bigger sports watches in my collection, so whenever I feel like wearing something large on the wrist to have more presence, but add a touch of elegance with that SLA treatment, this is the one I reach for. Plus, it looks great on both the bracelet and this Erica's Original strap. Speaking of SLA models, I found the Naomi Uemura well worth it enough to get a second SLA model. This one is the SLA 043, and it's my first ever brilliant steel case. This one was a bit disappointing to me because the bezel insert wasn't perfectly aligned. It was half a click off. The rubber straps that came with the watch were a little disappointing as well, given how long and stiff the rubber felt. Luckily, it looks good on other straps like this one from Erica's Original, but unfortunately it is a 19mm lug width, so I had to buy some 19mm straps from Erica's during Black Friday. The ever brilliant steel isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Your eyes eventually get used to the steel and it looks just like any other stainless steel out there. But putting those negatives aside, the watch is a great addition to my collection. It's nice to have a 62 MAS with its iconic case shape in the watch box. It also wears small, similar to a Tudor Black Bay 58, so on days I want to be a bit more discreet with a dive watch, this is an excellent pickup. The next two are my Datejusts. My first ever Rolex model still is and always will be in my collection. The Datejust reference 126200 in this gorgeous blue sunburst dial. I don't think I can ever sell this piece simply because it's my first Rolex. It automatically comes with that sentimental value of being the first, and it's always special when you spend your hard-earned money on your first expensive luxury watch. This watch didn't get much wrist time this year up until recently when I got it back into my rotation a few weeks ago, and it still puts a smile on my face every time I look at my wrist. I know those polished surfaces are scratch magnets, but man, when the light hits it just right, it really catches your eye. Perhaps it's the 904L steel that makes a difference. On my other hand, we have the 116234 in silver. This was a gift from my brother-in-law, a very generous gift at that, and I will always cherish this. So we have the sporty configuration of the Datejust and the dressy configuration. A 1-2 punch, so to speak. It's a nice change to put a 36mm on the wrist after wearing larger watches for some time. Such a classic model that'll never go out of style. Next up, we have the iconic Rolex Submariner reference 126610. What more can be said about this watch? So timeless, very iconic. I call this my COVID watch. It reminds me of the time I had COVID a couple of years ago. I was on my third or fourth day of recovery and still feeling a bit weak and tired and lightheaded when I got the message asking if I wanted to pick this up that day. I had no choice but to head on over and bring this puppy home. This watch also ties in with my engagement. Had I not bought my engagement ring from this store, I'm pretty sure I would not be offered this watch. So in a way, it was a win-win. One of my very first Seikos was the Pepsi Samurai, and so when I mistakenly sold it, I realized I wanted it back. By that time, they came out with these King Samurais with updates to the crystal and bezel insert. The one that spoke to me the most was this Patty edition, reference SRPG21. I just love that touch of baby blue with that embossed dial that is the Patty logo. So cool if you ask me. And then you go in a little deeper to see that glossy black, white-tipped second hand. I mean, this has got to be one of the coolest looking second hand if you ask me. I'm always switching between the original bracelet, a Marine Nationale strap, and rubber straps. It's always keeping me interested. The Seiko Turtle, the one that always gets compared to the Samurai. I had a handful of turtles coming and going, but this one just takes the cake. Fume dials never really spoke out to me, but this one seems to be an exception. The turtle shell printed on the dial was very creative from Seiko. Another cool looking watch. Seiko seems to always bring out the kid in me with their colorful and creative dials. And I think it's pretty quirky for a US special edition model to come with the kanji Japanese day wheel. Very cool. The Rolex Explorer 2 Polar reference 226570, my 40th birthday watch. It's been a year since I got this watch, and I'm still amazed by seeing it in my watch box for a couple of reasons. One, I didn't think I could pull off this watch. I was afraid it would be too large for my wrist based on the specs, but after trying it on in person, I was really impressed by how it wore. Even though it's a large watch, the thin profile makes the watch sit low on the wrist, making this watch super comfortable. And two, I really didn't think this watch was going to be offered to me. It was a new official Rolex jeweler that I had no relationship with, but I got the call just in time for my birthday. Yes, I know it's one of the least desirable sports models in their lineup, but it was still nice to get the call and experience that luxury purchase. It's also a watch that isn't as ubiquitous as the Submariner or the Datejust, so it's not that easy to spot in the wild. The Grand Seiko SBGE 285, also known as the Misf. This was actually supposed to be my 40th birthday watch. The story goes, this was an anticipatory purchase, and while it was in transit from overseas, that's when I got the call for the Polar Explorer. Seeing as how I was unable to return the Misf, I decided to keep it to replace the Speedy that I sold. Any reason to justify another purchase, am I right? The fit and finishing on this is miles better than their heritage collection, such as the Snowflake and the Cherry Blossom. The bracelet and clasp have been greatly improved. The way the end links meet the lugs and the case of the watch have much tighter tolerances. And aside from aesthetics, it's just a better engineered watch overall. Unfortunately, the price difference reflects those improvements. But yeah, I've had this thing about only allowing up to one Grand Seiko model in my collection, and there's no other Grand Seiko that I would put in this slot other than this. Next up is my Jeanneau Ocean Rover 2.5, my favorite configuration with the blue ceramic insert and that exceptional date magnifier. This is my 5-digit Submariner homage, if you will, a much more affordable way to experience a 5-digit sub with modern touches. I love the sword hands, the red seconds hand, and the AR coating on this is very impressive. This watch gets a lot of criticism for trying too hard to be a Submariner, but the fact is that if you want the next best thing at a tenth of the cost, the Ocean Rover is the only option. This one is my full metal Casio GMBB 2100. This was an impulse purchase, to be honest. but I have no regrets on getting this watch. I really like the Casio design. I had the half metal version at one point, but later sold it. And so I wanted to get back into one and decided on a full metal G-Shock just to have laying around. It really has a premium feel to it and makes you take comfort that the price of this watch is justified. And last but not least, after selling my Zin 556A, another Zin model has crept into my watch box. That one is this Zin 104 Matte Red Seconds White Limited Edition. I'm still honeymooning with this watch before I give you my full thoughts, but thus far, it's an incredible watch, obviously. I mean, look at it. It's pretty and rugged at the same time. The dial is so clean with a high gloss finish, and the bi-directional bezel action feels sharp and reassuring. I'm really glad I picked up this version with the bead blasted finishing. Very unique to this watch, and I love the cream touches in the indices and the hands. So yeah, this one will be getting a lot of wrist time in the coming weeks. Well, there you have it, my current collection to end the year 2024. You know, every now and then, I wish I was a 1 to 3 watch collection type of guy. I envy those who are completely satisfied with a minimal collection, but I fear that it's too late for me. I have a bunch of sentimental watches that I'll never sell, and because of that, I will always have a large watch box. I've come to terms with it. Maybe when the time comes, I'll pass these on to my family and friends, but for now, the journey continues into the next year. Who knows what will change or if it changes at all. I'll probably only do another State of the Watch collection in the future if there are drastic changes to it. Happy holidays, everyone, and I hope everyone has a wonderful new year, and may all your watch dreams come true. Thanks for watching.